No, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so
All right.
you already sent me the replay code. Now, just a heads up, even though I think this is cool as shit, I'm obviously not going to overuse it. I'm only going to use it when I
You're
actually
good.
think it's like, it actually makes sense. Until then, this is just going to sit on the wayside. So, we are looking at Mr. Puppy Slayer. What do you want
Mhm.
me to do for you today?
Um, so, I'm curious what I could be doing better.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing my little climbing thing. I was at like 2600 when we did our last session.
Mm-hmm.
I peaked at like close to 3200.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've kind of fallen a bit to like around like 3000 at the moment.
Okay.
But this was a game where I there's a fatal mistake that I make at the end, but I know that there
Yeah.
are mistakes along the way. And I feel like I'm also just losing a certain sense of attention to the things that we talked about last time.
So, what
So,
did we talk about? Can you give me a summary of what you've been working on?
um,
Doesn't have to be
so
super in depth.
no, it's okay. So not scoping in so much. And this, oh, right, here's something to talk about. Like, I'm trying to figure out when I do need to be quick scoping.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, there's going to be like an arc where I basically never took any unscoped shots with Anna, so my aim with it's going to be a little bit shit. But, if I'm like dueling a tracer or something like that, I'm a lot more consistent when I'm doing like quick scope shots.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so I've been not scoping in so much,
That's good.
um, not playing a million miles in the back,
That is
and
also good.
trying to stay just more on my like tank. And if they're both mobile tanks, I just try and stick around who is most immobile with the highest like health.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, as you mentioned in the replay code that I sent to you yesterday or something, um, I have maybe gotten a little too into using my nades for healing myself.
Yes.
Um, and I've been a lot better about that than I have been. But
Mm-hmm.
also, there have been moments where, like I'm at 33 health or something, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
want to save my nade, and then I get like poked and I die, and I'm like, right. So
Mm-hmm.
then I'm just trying to work that balance.
Well, so the question is, why are you taking that damage in the first place?
That is the question.
What are you getting
Um,
out of that damage? Well, let me rephrase. What should we be willing to take damage for as Ana? When is it worth it to
um,
take damage?
that's a good question. I guess when we're reasonably confident that you know not going to die,
Mm-hmm.
or I was maybe in the most vague of like broad sense, just when the value that I get for putting myself out there
Mm-hmm.
is you know the result is going to be better than the risk that I'm taking on.
Mm-hmm. So specifically, what are the values that we can get? There's two of them.
Um,
Well, I mean, technically, yeah, actually, there's only two.
so maybe secure doing a like damage at an important time or doing healing at an important time, or
Yes, so that's with your left click, but then there's also your nade. Okay.
right.
So basically, we only want to expose yourself if we feel like it's necessary in order to deal damage, or if it's necessary to land a nade. Okay.
Okay,
If you are exposing yourself, if you are taking damage because you exposed yourself because you are healing someone. Shit, I need to
that's
close
bad.
my. I need to close my WhatsApp notifications real quick. There we go. But yeah, so if you're taking damage because you're healing someone who you didn't really need to like expose yourself for to heal them, then
Yeah.
obviously that's an example of where we need to reposition. But if you are
Okay.
taking damage because you are, poking someone on the enemy team to farm ult charge, but there's no way for you to get that
You're
ult
just gonna
charge.
get like
What's
killed.
that?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, no, no. But basically what you said. So if there's no other way around it, so you just need to make sure that when you're taking damage, it's because you were doing something in return. Either you were dealing damage back, or you were trying to look for a nade. Now, some people would also say that it's fine to take damage when you're going for a sleep dart, but I think I've told you in the past that ideally we want to use our sleep dart primarily as a tool to punish people when they dive into us.
Okay. I don't think that we have covered that, so that's useful.
Okay. So, question number 1 is why would you drop from high ground?
I probably fell. I've played a few games since this, so I don't remember all of it, but
Mm-hmm.
watching it, I probably fell.
Okay, well, I mean, you're hip firing, so that's all good. Why was there so much hesitation with your sleep dart? I'm sorry,
Um,
with your nade, maybe with your nade.
let's see here. When does it happen here?
Well, it already
Oh,
happened.
like why hasn't it happened?
Yeah.
Um, there's no good reason for it to have not happened,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So
Like
with
Ryan
your
just
nade,
dropped his shield. I could have gone for it. There's a whole team right there.
that one thing that's important is like the chances of your nade going through here are very, very minimal. Okay, the Rhine
Mm-hmm.
could put up his shield at any moment, the Diva could
Mm-hmm.
be matrixing at any moment, the Genji could be deflecting at any moment. Like the chances of your nade hitting here are pretty low,
Mm-hmm.
but they aren't zero.
Okay.
Okay, and
I think maybe that's what I've been struggling with is like I just kind of am waiting
mhm,
for this like perfect moment for the
nope.
nade, and sometimes it shows up and it's great,
If
but then yeah.
so, basically there are two types of nades that you can throw, and you need to kind
Mm-hmm.
of consider them differently. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if drawing here makes sense, but I want to try this out. So we're going
Let's
to
do
try
it.
this out. Okay, does this work? Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. So basically, you have a nade that hits both I'm just going to type E for enemy, and a teammate. So
Mm-hmm.
enemy and a teammate. You have nades that only hit your teammates, and you have nades that only hit the enemies. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
obviously this nade right here, this is like the ultra nade.
Best case, yeah.
Whenever you get an opportunity like this, okay, so this is high reward. This pen is way too fucking thick, Jesus Christ. Okay, this is like hella alpha. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is high reward, and it's very low risk. Okay,
Right.
low risk because you are throwing it at two people at once. Okay, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
like you sniping, this is like you just throwing it at multiple people. And right away, if we look at the VOD here, we can already see that this would be in this category. Because,
Yeah.
you know, the main reason or the way that you need to think about this, okay, so why is throwing a nade at an enemy and a teammate at the same time low risk? Okay, what is the main risk with throwing a nade?
Um.
Why would you regret throwing a nade?
Right. Because it doesn't have an outcome. This, is probably low risk because if you miss your teammate, you have a good chance of hitting the enemy. If you miss the enemy, you might at least hit your teammate. Is that right?
So the way you need to think about it is that whenever we throw our nade, the biggest thing that we worry about is that someone is going to take damage afterwards, and then we
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to heal them. So right here, if let's say the monkey gets low HP all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
but you already tried to throw your nade at an enemy. Let's say that maybe the enemy Genji is up top right on the mountain and you want to nade him. Okay? In that case, it wouldn't be like an ET nade, it would just be an E nade. Okay? What could happen is that you throw the nade at the Genji, but then now you don't have it, and then your Winston gets low HP, and then you won't have your nade. Okay, so the main risk with throwing your nade is you won't have it when, oh god, when you need it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's the main risk. But if you throw it both at the enemy and your teammate at once, then you don't really have that risk. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because whether the enemy diva eats it now while you throw it at the monkey, or whether she eats it later, is the same risk. Like the risk isn't going to be any different.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of hierarchy, okay, like the absolute number one would obviously be the ET nade. The number two in terms of priority would be an enemy nade, and then a team nade is number three, because ultimately the only thing that a team nade does is it heals them, and that's something that your left click can do anyways. Does all
Okay.
of that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so basically what this says is this orders the three different kinds of nades that you can throw in terms of how hesitant you need to be about them. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you are trying to go for number three, if you're trying to only nade a teammate, you need to be very hesitant. Like you need to make sure, you need to make 100 fucking percent sure that he needs that nade or he's going to die. Okay,
Yeah.
so for example, when we should do that is when we have no ammo.
Right.
If you are reloading and one of your teammates gets low, then you need to throw one of those. Okay, and then second is the enemy nade. Obviously, this is like in terms of risk, it's the same as when you throw it against a teammate, but the reward is much higher because it creates an opportunity that your left click can't do. Your left click can't deny enemy healing. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're thinking about throwing a nade against an enemy, you should still like think about it. Like you don't just want to throw it into like a Reinhardt shield, but you should think
Yeah.
less about it than if you want to use it against a teammate. And then if you get to like the number one, if you see a nade that is going to hit both an enemy and a teammate, you shouldn't hesitate. Now there is
Okay.
one bonus thing, okay? So I wrote down like ET, T for teammate. Teammate also includes you.
Right.
Okay, so if the classical example is if a Genji dives you and he's deflecting and you throw the nade on the ground to hit both yourself and the Genji.
Right.
That is a super duper high value nade, and that's one of those nades where you shouldn't hesitate.
Okay.
Okay, so if we delete all of this, there we go, and go back. When you see that your Winston is frontlining, whenever you see a frontline fight like this, okay, the second this Ryan drops his shield, you need to immediately throw your nade. And while your nade is off cooldown, this should be the only thing that you think about. Nothing else matters. Okay?
Okay.
Good. Do you have any questions about nade usage?
So, sad scoping. So just that, like, I should, be kind of hesitant with just the enemy. Right. So with that replay that I sent you, um, there was like a Sigma shield up and like all this stuff, and
Yeah.
I wasn't really confident that that nade would hit.
Yeah.
But the alternative, as you saw, was me literally just standing in the corner and nading the ground and praying.
Yeah.
So, like, is that an instance, like kind of when I'm in the thick of it, it's obviously, great in hindsight, but like, when are those times where it's like, okay, I'm not so sure this is going to land or not, but beats holding onto it the entire game? Or then when are the times
That's where
like,
limit testing comes into play. Like you can't be
okay,
afraid of throwing a nade that's going to whiff. So with the example that you just gave, usually even if the enemies have shields, there's always a situation, or most of the time there's like a way that you can throw the nade that circumvents those shields
yeah,
using the map's geometry.
mm-hmm.
And if
Hit
you
like a
see
ceiling
that
or something.
opportunity, okay, even if it's kind of a long shot, even if it's kind of a difficult nade to go for, as long as theoretically it's possible for you to hit it, you should go for it.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, if there's like literally like a Sigma shield 2 inches in front of you, then don't bother.
Right.
But if you think, maybe I can squeeze it through there, maybe I can throw it above the Reinhardt shield or like below the Sigma shield, or maybe I can wait for the Matrix to go away, then you can go for the nade. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, especially given that we're seeing a theme that I'm under using the aggressive nade a little bit.
Yeah, and the issue is that you put yourself. So basically, the problem is that your positioning kind of puts you on a timer. Okay, so what that means is that normally, if you would just play on the high ground, this team fight could go on for a very long time.
Yeah.
Okay, but now that you dropped from high ground, whether it's intentional or not, you've basically put yourself into a situation where if you don't win this team fight anytime soon, the enemies will eventually punish you for the fuck up that you just did.
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever, which kind of brings us back to the whole risk versus reward management thing. Okay, so the higher the risk gets for you, the less you have to lose, and the more you need to play, like the more reckless basically you need to play. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you drop from the high ground and you see that your Winston is low, now you're in a very high risk situation. You're not really happy as Ana being on the low ground, right there with your monkey, no other teammates around you. So because of that, you're kind of under a time limit. You need to do something quick, or eventually the enemies are going to punish you for dropping from the high ground. So you need to play a little bit more aggressive, maybe go for a nade that basically you want to reduce the amount of hesitation with your abilities. Because if you drop from high ground, but then you land like a big 3-man nade and 2 enemies die, then you have enough time to get back up to high ground. Okay? But right here you made a mistake and you were too hesitant about kind of making up for that mistake, and now you're like hella out of position and you're dead.
Yeah.
But your teammates carry you, so At least
We
we've got
appreciate
that going for us. Okay, let's continue. Okay. This is the great thing about low elo. You can literally fall off high ground and still win a
Just
team fight.
walk back.
It's
Yeah.
glorious.
Where does low elo stop?
Masters.
Okay.
Okay, whenever I say that, people are like, holy shit, that's the most arrogant thing I've ever heard. What I consider low elo is any elo that you can get without truly, like, taking the game serious. Okay?
Okay.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it is possible to get to diamond without watching any guides or, like, critically thinking about your gameplay. Like, just playing the game, mindlessly playing the game, if you do it a lot, it can get you to diamond.
Yeah.
But Masters is like the first rating where someone needed to genuinely think about how they play the game. Like where they need to think about concepts like ult economy or ability management or heal priority and that sort of stuff. Okay? So, right here, right now, all of our teammates are full HP.
Right.
What should we do when all of our teammates are full HP?
Go for a nice nade.
So either for a nade or the default is you want to just go for poke damage.
Okay.
Just farm up your ultimate. Okay? But do you see how you hesitate going for poke damage here?
Yeah.
You're basically waiting until your teammates feed. And that's a problem, because you want to start applying pressures to the enemy healers as soon as you possibly can.
Okay.
Did I explain the whole like net healing, net damage dynamic to you once?
I don't think so.
Oh heck yeah, I can do more drawing. Okay, there we go. Is my screen dark?
Yeah.
Fuck yes, dude, I'm getting so much value out of this iPad. It's actually
So
insane.
much value.
So much value. Okay, so basically the way you need to think about it is that the enemy team has like a net HP. Okay, so I'm going to draw two graphs. Okay, this is like some math shit right here. Okay, so this is basically from your team, and this one is from the enemies. Okay, and based on how much healing the enemy team has, okay, their HP is going to increase by a certain amount. Okay, so let me actually change the graph to be a little like this, because that way it actually makes a little bit more sense. There we go. As you can see, I am no artist. Okay, there we go. This is good enough. So the enemy team has a certain amount of healing that increases their HP. Like that. Okay, and then your team also has a certain amount of healing. If your team comp is like Lucio Zen, then maybe you guys have this much healing. If your team comp is fucking Baptiste Moira, and you guys play a brawl comp, then you guys have like this much healing. Okay? But the point being is that both teams have a certain amount of healing that they can push through. Okay? The problem is you can only do that healing while people are actually taking damage. Okay? So this is like the theoretical maximum. That's not something that you're always going to get. Okay? So you need to ultimately, the way that you win team fights that aren't decided by picks or by ultimates, okay, is by applying pressure. And what pressure actually means is reducing the enemy's total net HP by more than they can heal. Okay? So if they can heal like 50 HPS, then you guys as a team need to deal, say, 100 DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then their HP is going to slowly burn down. That's what you want. Okay?
Right.
Now, obviously, if there's like a lot of damage coming in, if everyone in your team is like super duper low HP, then healing people is going to get you more value potentially than shooting the enemies, mainly because teammates are much easier to hit. Okay, so in that case, you don't want to trade your own healing to add to like the DPS value over here. Okay, but if your teammates are all full HP, then there's not really much that you can do over there, so you might as well deal damage and kind of just take that away from the enemies. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, now one extra thing that's important for you, okay, is when what happens. So right now we're looking at this very binary, okay, we're just looking at healing per second, okay, but if you think about it, there's two kinds of healing. Okay, so there's the regular healing where you just try to keep someone up so they can play aggressive, but then there's also life-saving healing. Okay, so there's like necessary healing in order to keep someone alive, and then like kind of the nice to have healing, like the kind of healing where if we don't heal them right now, maybe they're not going to play as effective. Okay, when it's about healing someone who's going to die, so when we think about necessary healing, then you don't just need to think about the damage that you could be dealing to the enemies, you also need to be thinking about the damage that that teammate could be dealing to the enemies. Does that make
Right.
sense? Okay,
Yeah, I think so.
so if your Reinhardt has taken 10 damage, those 10 damage don't really need to be healed up because those 10 damage don't really affect the amount of damage that he throws into the enemy team that they need to deal with. Okay?
Right.
But if your Reinhardt is critical, then obviously you need to heal him because if he's going to die, not only do you lose the DPS that you would add, you're also going to lose any DPS that he would add to the team fight.
Okay.
Okay? So it's kind of the same logic that we had with our nade earlier, where you need to die. It's not very black and white. Okay, it's not as Ana. It's not you should always heal or you should always deal damage. Okay, you always need to weigh what in terms of numbers is going to get you more value. Okay, if healing your teammates would mean that you would prevent 3 of them from dying, then obviously preventing 3 people from dying and allowing them to continue dealing damage is more value than you shooting an enemy Rhine shield.
Right.
But if you walk back to the point, so let's clear this drawing. There we go. If you go back to the point and you see all of your teammates are full, just look at the healing you're doing here.
You're very yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like
see,
very
like
fine.
this is an example. Obviously, when your Zen is low, then that's another thing, right? But basically, you shouldn't have started healing until this Winston is critical,
Okay.
because that's where you risk losing him. And
Yeah.
if you would have started dealing damage to the enemy team beforehand, you easily could have pumped like 300 to 400 damage into the enemy team, which is 300 to 400 healing that their support lane needs to do, and they have a Lucio.
Right.
Lucio is one of those picks that can get very high value, but not in low elo. Because most of the value you get from Lucio is from his speed boost and from the DPS that he can deal. He's not really amazing at healing. But the problem is, low elo players don't have the mechanics to deal DPS as Lucio, and low elo players don't have the coordination to get value out of Lucio's speed boost. Okay? So this
Okay.
Ana is basically solo healing, which means whenever you see a combination of like Lucio and another support, you need to understand, okay, like the actual healing they have is very low, and it's very easy for us to overwhelm this Ana. So you need to put like extra emphasis on dealing damage.
Okay.
Okay? Whereas if the enemy team comp is like, as I mentioned earlier, Moira Baptiste, they have like a lot of healing. In that case, doing damage, like just raw damage, might not be the best play for you. And in that case, you can focus a little bit more on healing and then focusing your attention on landing big nades. Okay, but against their team comp, 100% just pump damage into them as much as you can. Okay, yeah. See, just look like that was a really nice nade, but the problem is it's so late.
Yeah.
If you guys lose this team fight, then everyone is going to say, "Oh, you landed a nice nade," but it's after our Zarya already died, so it didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
And if you guys win this team fight, no one is going to say, "Ooh, our Ana carried this team fight with her nade." Everyone's going to say, "Ooh, our Genji killed the enemy Widowmaker. That's what won us this team fight." Right? So it's not just about landing big nades; it's about landing them fast. I guess the best way to describe it is you need to be a little bit more ADHD.
Okay.
Right now, sometimes you're like a little too content with just kind of chilling and looking around and healing people that are full HP. Like you need
Yeah.
to be more bloodthirsty. Like your default playstyle should be playing aggressive, and then when you really have to, when mommy
Yeah.
tells you to come to bed, then you
Mhm.
chill and you heal up people. But then as soon as you're like ready to go for action, you can go fuck up people again. Even right here when you're chilling on this high ground, don't even look at your teammates. Look at the enemies that are coming down here. Okay? Those enemies are like they're like guaranteed value because they have HP that you can burn down. Whereas with your teammates, you need to wait until they take damage first.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know I'm also just like playing like scared of Widow.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is a tragedy
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough ultimate. I don't think you could have. I mean, maybe. Yeah, okay, so it's kind of tough to gauge. If you would have gone behind the sign, you would have survived it, but this is not one of those fights where, we want to think about how we could have avoided that
Right.
Diva ultimate. Ultimately, it kind of boils down to the same thing. You're always letting the enemy team decide the pace of the fight. You
Yeah.
don't want the enemy team to decide the pace of the fight. You want to be the one who lands big nades that they need to react to. You want to be the one who constantly pokes their backline to 1 HP so that they can't peek. You want to be the one who nano boosts his Genji or his Winston or his Diva so they can go in and they can screw people over. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Was I right to back out there?
Let me check. Yeah, you guys can't touch this point. This is perfectly fine. I mean, your McCree is kind of not getting super duper high value. So yeah, not exactly something he should do. Okay, but there we go. I guess now I can use this fucking drawing thing for summary of everything. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marie. There we go. Okay, so what did you write down?
Okay. What did I write down?
Yes.
Um,
I mean, I
Honestly,
can
not
just
much.
tell you, but it's easier
Um,
if.
yeah. Okay. Right. So, it was like, don't take, substantial damage because you're going to heal somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So
So
only take damage when worth. There we go. Good summary. Okay,
okay.
next.
So it's worth it when.
When you're going
Can you
for a big
restate
nade.
why, like, not to go for healing
hmm
someone? Is it just because like the risk
No,
isn't
so you
worth
can
it?
go for healing, but again, it depends. So what worth it means depends a lot on why you're healing them. So as I mentioned earlier,
Oh, I
if
see.
your
Going
if your
back to the temp
Reinhardt
thing.
has only taken 10 damage, then maybe you don't want to
Not worth it.
stand in front of 3 enemies to heal him. But if your Reinhardt is very low HP, and you know, if my Reinhardt dies here, this team fight is over anyways, then the risk becomes very low. Because if the
Right.
Reinhardt dies, then the team fight is lost
It's
anyway,
kind
so
of
you
a,
don't have
yeah.
anything to lose.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is basically risk management.
Okay.
Risk
Um,
management. Oh shit. Management. So this basically means recognize when you have nothing to lose. By the way, I can send all of these slides to you afterwards, or you can just see them in the recording. So yeah, recognize when you have nothing to lose. If your
yeah.
Reinhardt is going to die and you lose the team fight, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. So there's that. Um, Using nades more liberally when, I mean, well, it seems like, there's the conditions, but it seems like you could also just put a period there, like using nades more liberally.
Yeah,
But
basically.
using them, particularly liberally when there's a teammate and an enemy in the general vicinity of the nade that I'm throwing, um, and using it a little less liberally, but still more so than I have been if I'm going for an enemy,
hmm
and a little less liberally still if it's going for a teammate.
Yeah.
That about right?
So we
Okay.
just call those team nades. So liberal nade usage, especially when you're throwing them at both enemies and teammates. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and I mean, this also ties back to the just knowing when there's nothing to lose. If we've been pinned down at that choke that I sent you for like 2 team fights,
Exactly.
time to start throwing, even if there's a 2% chance.
Yeah.
Um, so okay. So I'm trying to think what else there
I mean,
is.
there's only one more thing, the one thing we talked about at the end.
Um, Jesus Christ. Um,
Okay, so I can just tell you.
yeah.
So the last one is just maximize uptime.
Okay.
So basically, what that means is uh, the healthier your team is, so I'm just going to call this like team HP up leads to DPSing up. Okay, so the healthier your team is, the more you want to increase the damage you're dealing.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
whereas if your
that's
team is looking like really shit and people are about to die, then you want to reduce the damage you deal and focus more on healing. But right now, you don't really take into account whether your teammates actually need your healing. Okay, so they're basically saying, hey Anna, like we don't really need you. You know, you could
yeah.
go and poke them, but you know, you're giving them those little itsy bitsy tiny heals that don't even give you any charge.
Yeah. Um, and what was the condition you mentioned for the sleep darts?
So basically, for sleep darts, you only want to, you know, I guess I can put this like as a little addendum down here. You know, like sleep darts. You want to use them basically as a tool to punish aggression.
Okay.
Okay, so punish aggression. Okay, this is like hella not readable. I need to make this thinner, but you get the
I
idea.
Um, okay, so that's, someone diving or coming in, or maybe even just seeing a window where Rhine is swinging, and I can get like the sleep kind of like shoot nade combo in. Is that about right?
Yeah, basically. So if a
Okay.
Doomfist jumps in, you can nade him.
Yeah.
If there's a Junkrat on the other end of the map, maybe not sleep him.
Right.
You know. So
Yeah.
the more aggressive, you basically want to catch the enemies with their pants down. If they're like super duper aggressive, then you want to go for it. But if not,
Yeah.
then not. Obviously.
Okay. Cool. And then just if I can, one more quick thing, like any
We have time.
party
Relax,
mode
Rooney,
run
dude. I'm
in
not. We're in no rush here.
okay. All right. For when to like quick scope.
When to quickscope?
Yeah.
Um,
Because for a while I was basically either hard scoping or quick scoping, and I maybe like doing one unscope shot for every 100.
basically, quickscoping is something that you like only really do when you're shooting at someone at like a long distance, and you're
Hmm.
worried you might not be able to hit them.
Okay,
That's like
all right.
pretty much the only
Rephrasing the
time.
question, and maybe it's. I feel like the answer is just it kind of comes with experience, but something I'm trying to navigate is like when is the answer like I just need to get better at predicting where the person's going and the timing of my projectile. Or this is actually not just a moment where you need to improve your aim. This is a moment where you need to quickscope.
Quickscoping is kind of a weird thing because you don't want to overuse it because it makes your shots like hella inaccurate. I really wouldn't. Basically, the only time you use it when you're like, if you like really need to give someone like a quick emergency heal at a distance. Or honestly,
Yeah.
most of the time you use it for poking. To be honest,
Okay.
yeah, most
Uh,
of the time you use it for poking.
would you recommend it in like, you know, like duels with like Tracer Genji, like these kind of fast characters in your face?
I mean, yeah. So if you think that you're not going to be able to land like the regular shot, then yeah, you want to use it.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. I guess that's all.
Okay, there we
Cool.
go. I think I managed to optimize those drawing settings a little so you can actually read like the smaller text. Excellent. Okay,
Nice. I'll take a little picture.
perfect.
Uh,
So,
okay. Well, thank you so much, and I'll work on it and check in a couple weeks, and hopefully, hopefully we'll be a little bit better.
sounds like a plan. Then I
Cool.
guess I wish you the best of luck. I hope the whole drawing thing worked out. Again, this is like hella alpha, but I think if I can get the hang of it, this is going to make things so much easier.
Yeah,
And
I like it.
yeah, I wish you the best of luck.
Cool.
Have a good
All
one.
right.
See ya.
Bye.